Hey everybody, it's Marc Veasey.
And I'm Greg Landsman.
Welcome back to The Fly-In, a New Dem podcast. Today is Monday, December the 1st, and we'll be joined by one of the newest representatives in Congress. That is James Walkinshaw of Virginia. We'll discuss the Epstein Files, Pete Hegseth's potentially illegal boat strike, which is definitely illegal, and Trump's pardon, and much, much more. So let's get into it.
Sure.
We are about to get into some amazing and crazy things that are happening around the country. But let me take the time to introduce our guest from Virginia, James Walkinshaw. James, thank you for joining us, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
I did. I had a great Thanksgiving. My son is 5 years old, and he loves to talk about the Thanksgiving feast.
Yeah.
So he was excited for the thing. He didn't barely eat
Did you
anything.
Did you cook?
It might have been catered. It might have been catered.
Wow.
Nice. Okay.
Had to heat it up.
Walkinshaw caters his Thanksgiving. Mark, it's embarrassing in front of Mark. I don't cater, but like I could see myself doing that.
Yeah.
Mark is a serious cook.
Yeah.
I saw it was like a 22-pound
I made a 22.5-pound turkey on the grill, on the pellet grill, and it turned out, it was
22
excellent.
and a half.
Yeah, 22
But
and a
you
half.
cook everything, right?
We cook a lot. We cook a lot at home. That's like a big deal in our house. Kind of brings the family together. And as a young member, I will tell you, as a new incoming member, definitely keep that time with your family as much as you can. You're going to be obviously pulled back and forth to different events. But one of the things that I really looked forward to when I flew in was getting home in time Thursday night to sit down with the family and have dinner. My son is 19 now, but to find out what was happening in school, and so being able to converse around a meal is like a really big part of our family, and it gives you a greater appreciation for good food, I think.
Yeah.
So you came into one of the most unproductive, craziest Congresses in the history of the United States of America. And I'm curious, what's been good about it, but also what has been, really frustrating for you as a new member.
Yeah. Well, I worked here for 11 years.
That's something that we all have in common.
We
all were staffers.
Yeah.
So I worked on the Hill as a staffer. You worked on the Hill, actually in the district.
I worked in the district,
in the district office, and you were chief of staff. So you were the highest ranking of the three of us. I was a lowly staffer. Pelosi.
Yeah.
I was in local government for almost 6 years.
Okay.
So I left the Hill in 2020. And was on Fairfax County Board of Supervisors.
Right.
For the
That's right.
5
That's
years
right.
there. But like one of the things that Jerry Connolly, my former boss, would say to me is like, if you ever walk up here and look at the Capitol Dome and like you don't feel something about it, you should leave. So I definitely feel that, right? Like it's an incredible honor to represent our communities and walk onto the floor of the House and do the things we get to do. Like that's the good part of it. The frustrating part has been, we had this Republican shutdown, and I was here as a staffer, well, you guys were too, for the last 3 shutdowns.
No, but just for what it's worth, I was a staffer in the late 90s.
Okay, all right.
There was
all
like
right.
25 years between.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it was a little strange for Pelosi, who I worked for.
Yeah.
To see this kid,
what's he doing
like
here?
looking at me now, and then looking at like I have hair.
I wasn't going to say that, but
but it's been really cool. But that's a different experience. That's like 25. That's a different lifetime.
Yeah, but like for me, the frustrating part has been the fact that the House of Representatives shut down.
Yeah.
Which didn't happen in the last 3 shutdowns that I mean, those shutdowns were frustrating, but the idea that we weren't even here, and for me personally, I was sworn in on the 10th, September 10th, and then the House of Representatives shut down on September 19th.
What's it like with government shutdown and DOGE and your district? Because obviously y'all have the largest number of federal employees out of anyone else. What has it done to your local economy? Like I can tell you, like immigration in Texas, for instance, because we have such a large undocumented immigrant workforce in the DFW area and across Texas. We've seen businesses that have gone out. We've seen empty houses, all sorts of economic, struggles. Even as DFW continues to do, relatively well, we have seen a lot of places struggle because that's a lot of money that's been removed from our economy. What's it like here? I would imagine it's been.
Yeah, a lot of people are hurting. So I represent somewhere between 50 and 60,000 federal workers.
Jeez.
And then on top of that, hundreds of thousands of people who work for contractors, right? And some of those are the big name contractors that you've heard of, but a lot of them are thousands and thousands of small businesses.
I mean, that's half your district then.
Oh yeah, at least, yeah. Veteran-owned, women-owned, minority-owned small businesses. And so federal workers, we've seen thousands of them lost their job by some number, 200,000 nationally. So in my district, somewhere between 10 and 20,000 have lost their job, right? So every day I go out and I hear from folks who used to work at USAID or Department of Education or Consumer Financial Protection Bureau who have lost their jobs and are trying to figure out, how to pay the rent, pay the mortgage, put food on the table. We were the #1 district in the country for veteran-owned businesses who have had their contracts canceled.
Wow.
That's the other thing the Trump administration is doing that people don't realize. They're firing federal employees, but they're also just willy-nilly canceling contracts for contractors, including a lot of veteran-owned contractors. So it's definitely hitting people hard. We're a resilient economy. We've worked hard to diversify our economy over the years, but there's no question it's going to have a short-term and medium-term impact on our economic development.
Do you think that the DMV is already in a recession?
I think I think region-wide, probably.
Yeah.
I think region-wide, probably.
Regardless of what the data say, it's clear in terms of what most people are feeling that we are in a recession. Most people, when you talk to them, are struggling to make ends meet if they've kept their jobs.
Yep.
If they're, I have a bunch of farmers in my district. They are panicked.
Yep.
Because they borrowed a bunch of money last year because of the drought, and now this year they are underwater.
Yeah.
And they have no idea how they're going to pay this loan back. And these are third, fourth, fifth generation, farmers, and it's the first time ever that they may lose their farm.
Yep.
Same with small businesses, and there's no at the moment. Sense that the Speaker, the Majority Leader, Congress, or the President have any interest in working on any of these things. In fact, we're going to get into what they are focused on, which is this whole Epstein mess, the situation in Venezuela, which we want to get your thoughts on, and just the pardons. But as we sort of transition to that Epstein piece, I'm curious, when you got here, because that falls into the jurisdiction of oversight. Yeah,
that's right.
And that was the committee you chose. So I'm curious, why'd you make that decision?
Yeah, so my predecessor, Jerry Connolly, had been the ranking member on the Oversight Committee, served there for 15 years almost. And for our district, all of the issues that impact federal workers and contractors that we're talking about, Oversight Committee is the committee of jurisdiction, so pay and benefits and all that kind of nuts and bolts stuff. So that was my reason for wanting to be on the committee.
Not Epstein.
I'll get to that, and
that's interesting, honestly, because you represent so many federal workers.
Yeah, I came for the boring stuff.
Yeah, honestly, you came for the boring stuff.
Yeah, I came for the boring stuff, and I'll be honest with you all on the Epstein thing. When I started, I was a little bit of a skeptic that the files would reveal a lot of new information.
Why?
I guess I felt like if there were information, I hadn't spent a lot of time on it before I was elected to Congress. I felt like if there were new information, it would have come out already. I was 100% wrong about that.
Yeah. You have the Epstein estate.
Yes.
And they have information that's very relevant to who did what, who knew what, who's responsible, who needs to be held accountable. Give us a little bit of a behind the scenes on oversight. Like, what are some of the things that people who aren't watching the hearings or just give us a little bit of background and what aren't we seeing?
Yeah. I think one thing that people need to understand about the Oversight Committee's investigation is we're getting the documents we're getting because Democrats on the committee, led by Robert Garcia, have pushed and pushed and pushed. And we got the subpoena for the documents because Democrats have been forcing votes to get those subpoenas. And I've seen some reporting that this is like Chairman Comer's investigation, he has fought this
Well, he lost
every
this vote.
step
I mean,
of the way.
it goes back to a vote.
That's
that
right.
He lost.
That's right.
I don't know who called the question, whether it was Robert or Garcia or somebody else, called the question on the subpoena, and usually we would have we wouldn't have the numbers.
That's right.
But what happened?
They weren't in the room. There weren't enough Republicans in the room.
There weren't enough Republicans
and a couple
in the room.
voted, and a couple voted with us.
Who were the Republicans in the room?
Well, that's a good. It was in subcommittee before I was elected to Congress, but Summer Lee, one of the incredible Democrats on the committee, forced a vote.
She called the question.
Yeah, she called the question. I think Lauren Boebert might have been.
I think Lauren
cut
Boebert
that out
and
if that's
Nancy Mace were
inaccurate.
the two
Yeah, I think that's right.
Said,
yeah. So we got these
Wow.
subpoenas over the chairman's objections.
That's crazy.
And the investigation has
It is,
proceeded.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's a rare thing, and honestly, if not for that, who knows what would have happened with the discharge petition and the files and the vote on the floor. But we get every once in a while tranches of documents from the estate, go through them, scrutinize them, determine what's relevant. I will tell you, the DOJ is also under subpoena to the Oversight Committee, and they are, in my view, out of compliance with that subpoena.
How quickly are they? Did they have to turn things around?
Well, they haven't turned around anything. I mean,
They've
turned around.
Why they're out of compliance because
Because they haven't. They have released documents. 92%, I think the latest number of the documents they've released were already publicly available, meaningless
they're
documents.
just out of compliance with the
Yeah.
subpoena.
That's right, with the subpoena.
What
So that
happens
which means
next?
something is there.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
What happens next?
We're going to continue to get documents from the estate. They're on a regular schedule. They've been compliant and submitting documents. We're working to get additional subpoenas for the financial institutions to follow the money. And we're going to keep pressuring DOJ to fulfill the subpoena that they're under, regardless of what happens with the vote that we had on the floor that President Trump signed to release the files ultimately.
But now he is supposed to release the files, and everybody is wondering what's going to happen, including my son who follows this. He wants to know, is Trump going to release all this stuff? And if so, is he going to hold things back? I mean, do we know, and when will we know?
We don't know. I fear that he's going to use the sham investigations that he ordered DOJ to launch of several prominent Democrats to say he can't release the files because they're active investigations that could be impacted. And look, our view as Democrats on the Oversight Committee, I think across the Congress is,
If they're guilty, they're guilty.
yeah, whoever's let it out, right? It doesn't matter whether they're Democrats or Republican or last name Trump or last name something else. But I fear he's going to use that, and the legislation does have a carve out for that. I fear he's going to use that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so over the weekend, we've heard about what Hegseth did when he ordered people that were aboard this boat coming from Venezuela, killed. Now, there's conflicting reports about whether or not he actually did that. What I heard him say was that he didn't deny it. He said that that is being blown out of proportion.
Terrible pun.
Right.
Very terrible pun.
Yeah. First, the entire operation of targeting these boats of suspected drug smugglers, I think is illegal on its face, the entire operation.
Right.
Setting that aside, if what was reported with respect to this specific boat, that Secretary Hegseth gave the order to kill everybody, and then in response to that order, there was a decision to, after the first strike on the boat that killed most on the boat, when there were two men clinging to the side of the boat, to strike again to make sure those two men were dead. If that reporting is accurate, it's absolutely a war crime.
It's a war crime.
Both the order, which is an illegal order, and especially that secondary strike to kill the two men who clearly were incapacitated, no longer a threat, clearly a war crime. I think it's revealing that in the immediate aftermath, Secretary Hegseth posted a lengthy statement, and at no point did he deny any of the facts that were reported.
Yeah.
He gave a vague denial that the narrative was false. He didn't deny giving the order, and he didn't deny that there was a second strike on the two men who were clinging to the side of the boat, likely injured. Subsequently, President Trump has said he didn't give that order. But if that were the case, why didn't Secretary Hegseth voiced that denial in the immediate aftermath of the strike. So,
but this is why we have the responsibility as members of the United States Congress to provide oversight. So, what will happen? Do you think the Republicans on the Oversight Committee will say, "Look, we need to look into this"? Obviously, there's an intelligence component to it, and that committee may. But oversight just does have jurisdiction here in terms of getting answers. No.
We have broad jurisdiction. I'm on the Military and Foreign Affairs Subcommittee. Right. I do know that Armed Services, both in the House and Senate, Republicans and Democrats, the leadership of those committees have said that they want to investigate and they want to get answers. I hope that this will be a line for congressional Republicans in terms of oversight. I say I hope. I'm not optimistic about that. But I think those investigations need to proceed. I think every member of Congress should be briefed and needs to get an explanation.
And do you guys
the
have,
administration what happened?
As Democratic members of the Oversight Committee, will you get together this week separately? Do you guys do that sometimes?
We do, yeah.
And I assume this will be a question, right?
Yeah.
Do you move forward even though other committees may move forward?
Yeah, that's a question we face often on the Oversight Committee, and make a decision based on the pace at which other committees are moving, or whether we're confident that they're handling it. So yeah, we recently launched a dashboard to list all of the alleged abuses from ICE and other immigration enforcement agencies, which kind of overlaps a little bit with Homeland Security jurisdiction, but it's also in our jurisdiction, so we can't do that from time to time.
You do have to hold folks in the administration accountable, and that balance, I think, is going to be really important to strike in terms of making sure that, people are held accountable and these investigations move forward, but we are focused entirely on the things that matter most to folks back home, which is, the cost of living, their public safety, their jobs, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
I think the American people want and deserve a federal government that's effective and accountable to them.
Yeah.
And that should be our job on the Oversight Committee, right? It's not about what I want to investigate or what Democrats want to investigate. It's about what can we do to make the federal government more effective, better stewards of their tax dollars, and accountable to the American people. So that's what we're working to do.
Yeah, and and earlier when we were talking about the strikes on these boats in the Caribbean, I said that Pete Hegseth has not actually denied.
That's right.
That he has done this. They're using words like fake news and just being sensationalized, false narrative, but he hasn't denied that he ordered these people executed.
Right.
And which brings me to the next sort of segment I want you to touch on before you have to leave, is that he probably thinks that Trump is going to pardon him. Hegseth probably feels like he can do and say whatever he wants to, because at the end of the day, Trump is going to pardon him, so he can continue to sort of use Hegseth as his own personal flunky in the role of SecDef. And so I want to talk with you about the war on drugs, because that President Trump announced that he was going to actually pardon President Juan Orlando Hernandez. What do you think about that?
A narco-terrorist.
Convicted.
Convicted narco-terrorist. And so on one hand,
bringing drugs into the U.S. while he's saying that he's trying to fight bringing drugs into the U.S.
I mean, look, I think it's another example of, like, if you're rich and powerful and well-connected.
This is your America.
Yeah. I mean, Donald Trump is your guy, right? This
is your president.
If you're just a guy who gets paid $100 to drive a boat to the U.S., and I don't condone that, but if you're that guy, you get blown up.
Yeah.
If you're a wealthy former president, narco-terrorist, Trump loves you.
Yeah, that has shipped over.
We see it with Putin. We see it with I mean, he loves these powerful, wealthy, well-connected guys. I don't know if he admires them. Maybe he admires this narco-terrorist.
I don't think it's like, I was reading a little bit, because I think a lot of us think or have been told it's admiration, and there's probably some of that. But when you look at the Ukraine deal that just emerged, it's mutual wealth gathering, meaning that he sees people who have a ton of money, and they're surrounded by people with a ton of money. And if he can just sort of merge his world with theirs, which is what he's doing with the so-called peace agreement in Ukraine, which essentially sets up the Russian oligarch billionaire class, they get a bunch of contracts, they get big payouts, and so does Trump and Trump's buddies. They're all getting paid.
What is it like to work here and like really never leave work? Like, you know, he gets to go back to Ohio, I get to go back to Texas.
Yeah.
What's it like to...
I always say the air is different when I land too. I get back home and I'm like, this
no, seriously. But what's it like knowing that
You're
you know, you don't want to be the congressman that was like having the people that work in the Longworth cafeteria saying, "Hey, he was rude to me. He looked down on me because I'm a cafeteria worker." Because that could be your constituent, right? The Capitol Police that work in this building.
Anyway.
That's right.
You shouldn't do that anyway.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I would be polite to them regardless. But yeah, a lot of folks who work in and around the Capitol.
That's true. You're on stage all the time, to your point.
In my district, my father-in-law worked here in the clerk's office for many years. A lot of folks are my constituents, Republicans and Democrats, by the way. And that's fun, honestly, to get to see the people that I represent day to day. And the other thing is, like, actually, in some ways, because I can go home to my district every night and sleep in my own bed, I'm a little bit more less connected, less DC than because you're here all week.
You come to vote, but then you go home every night.
Yeah, like I can go home and I drop my son off at preschool in the morning and come. It's like Don Byer lives closer than me. I live just outside the Beltway, but he lives like right across the river. So
Glenn Ivey said to me the other day, and I swear I almost punched him in his face. He's like, "Oh, it's a 15-minute drive for me." I was like, you know what?
Yeah, for me, it's sometimes it's an hour. Sometimes it's an hour.
They don't get their per diem, though.
That's right.
I would give up my per diem to be able to go home and be with my wife and children and community every night. It's awesome. Look, you have made an enormous impact already. Like, you're one of everyone's favorite members, in part because you're just a decent, immediately decent person. So thanks for being on the show and thanks for being who you are.
Thank you. Enjoyed it, guys. Appreciate you both.
Good to see you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this week. Please remember to follow us across social media platforms and rate and review the show wherever you get the podcast. We'll see you next time on The Fly-In.